HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Power of Attachment, How to Create Deep and Lasting Intimate Relationships by Diane Poole Heller, Ph.D. Foreword by Peter A. Levine, Ph.D. Read by Emily Durante. Foreword. Within every person there exists the weight and opportunity of a hero's journey. I believe this, and I have seen it validated thousands of times in my 45 years of clinical experience. Many of our life's decisions are fueled by our ability to hold or not hold ourselves to this wholly unique vision of who we each strive to be. The hero in all of us is faced with an externalized threat or dilemma, a powerful foe. This foe in our lives is a symbolic obstacle to inner order, peace, love, prosperity, relationship, and the greater good. This inner foe seems overwhelming in its strength and power. It seeks to destroy the hero as well as punish and spread a dark cloud. Trauma has obvious parallels to the foe. At its core, trauma and deep emotional wounding is about overwhelm and helplessness. It inhibits our vitality, dulls our senses, and weakens us by separating us from each other through the grip of fear and suffering. Separation from each other is one of the most effective ways to undermine a relationship and even a civilization. There is also an allegorical relationship between the torment of civilization and the torment of the self. Terror annihilates our connection to ourselves, to the embodied self, to what is true and eternal in us. We become isolated and adrift. We no longer head outside the door to water our gardens, and in the process, lose the gifts of nourishment. If trauma is the foe, then attachment to self and others would be the inner task of the hero. It describes where the hero comes from, and also commands a path that must be taken. Heroes aren't born, they are cultivated through meeting adversity. The most compelling heroes of ancient lore are the ones who suffer great disappointments and loss. They aren't ready for the task at hand. They fail at first. They change. They prove themselves to others and to themselves. They earn the support of friends and allies. They persevere. They find their own mastery. They triumph. Mythology aside, in real everyday life, our connection to the role of our inner hero is more sporadic. We are not meant to always embody the role of the hero. Embodying the role of hero can even leave us vulnerable to those who would take advantage of our benevolent intents. The business of media oftentimes distorts and corrupts our faith in heroes. In these contemporary times, myth has become a rare commodity. In the context of developing a connection to the self, of finding safety and security in ourselves and in others, in moving through our daily tasks, from the minute and mundane to the macro decisions of love, career, family, friends, and residence, it is edifying to make contact with our heightened selves in an embodied and present way to guide our choices and actions. This brings us back around to the topic of attachment, as attachment is about connection. Attachment not only describes how we contact and connect with others, but also with ourselves and with our bodies. This is why understanding how trauma impacts our tissues and our nervous systems, and thereby our sense of safety, is so vitally critical to navigating the complexities of our attachment patterns. Our bodies generate vast surges of survival energy to run, pounce, kick, slash, flee, and destroy, or to attach, when we are under perceived threat. If circumstances leave us stuck in this charged state for too long, it is as if a circuit breaker cuts off our power, a life-saving adaptation rescuing us from too much threat too fast, or too little support for too long. In other words, we dissociate. The same life-saving energy mobilizations that allow us to fend off or escape threat stays trapped in our bodies when overwhelmed. This trapped threat response energy gets caught in a feedback loop, a pointless, destructive, and circular conversation between body and brain. Like pointing a microphone at a speaker, this conversation relentlessly amplifies itself. The brain asks, Are we okay? Our body replies, all I can feel is stress. Aren't we dying? The brain figures, I guess we are dying then. We must need to work harder. Our physiology convinces us of our emotions. The very foundation of a healthy psyche and body, our capacity to feel safe, is undermined by the foe of trauma. If our bodies are stuck in survival mode, our emotions and feelings will turn our attentions obsessively towards seeking safety. This inhibits our vitality, and so we will avoid risk. All incoming experiences tend to take on a quality of threat, which undermines our capacity to make contact with others. The bad news is that trauma is a fact of life. But, and this is the good news, it doesn't have to be a life sentence. What I have taught to thousands of clients and students over the years is that the key in taming this vast sea of distress involves learning how to touch into small chunks of the experience, including body sensations, feelings, images, thoughts, and energies, and encountering tiny little bits, piecemeal, one by one. These form small islands of safety in a raging sea of trauma. And then these islands begin to connect, and little by little there forms a solid mass of relative safety, a place where we can stand back and observe these difficult sensations and haunting feelings, and then slowly come to peace with them. The essential questions become, how much can I feel while staying present in the here and now? How much can I tolerate before I check out? And what can I do to stay within my range of tolerance? The wisdom of our bodies provides the answers to how we may carve out a protected space in the roiling currents of terror, fear, and helplessness. A small haven of safety that gives us enough time to explore that titrated chunk of experience, consider it, take it apart, keep what is valuable, and discard what is not. In this way, we gradually change the message of our physiology from terror to safety. The focus shifts from protection and escape to warmth and connection, from panic or shutdown to exploration and compassion. Our foe is beaten, the danger passes. We come out of our homes and tend to those things that nourish and sustain ourselves as well as others. There is peace and prosperity in the realm. Life thrives in emotional richness. Since it is true that all of us have some complication with healthy attachment, I am thrilled to be introducing you to this book. I've been fortunate in knowing its author, Dr. Heller, for several decades. Diane was one of my brightest students and someone whom I continue to admire and cherish greatly. Her qualities of warmth, energy, caring, and insight have benefited thousands of her clients and students over the years. Her gifts and wisdom are ever present throughout The Power of Attachment, a book that will provide you with an accessible yet exemplary framework for identifying your own unique, sometimes complex attachment struggles, delivered with Diane's wit and breezy, unpretentious tone. The included exercises will certainly help you rediscover your true embodied self and will guide you to renegotiate your own obstacles to connections with others. It is a book for therapists who work with attachment issues with their clients. It is equally for those of us beginning new relationships, for those wanting to enrich long-term relationships, and for those of us who are ending relationships and learning and healing from those endings. I am excited for you to begin this engaging journey. May we all heroically overcome our foes and bring wholeness, prosperity, and purpose to civilization as well as to the civilization of the self. Peter A. Levine, Ph.D., author of the best-selling Waking the Tiger, Healing Trauma, In an Unspoken Voice, How the Body Releases Trauma and Restores Goodness, and Trauma and Memory, Brain and Body in a Search for the Living Past, a practical guide for understanding and working with traumatic memory. Introduction. I want to start by telling you a story about something that happened to me back in 1988 when I was preparing for my wedding. It was only 2 weeks away, and I was so excited, but also incredibly busy, as people often are just before the big day. I was driving around Denver, frantically attending to a myriad of wedding-related errands and details. I was going about 55 miles per hour when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something sliding off my planner toward the car floor. It was a porcelain figurine, one of those bride and groom wedding cake toppers, and it had meant a lot to my mother-in-law to give it to me, so I really didn't want it to break. Driving down a traffic-filled Santa Fe drive, I foolishly unbuckled my seatbelt and leaned over to grab the fleeing figurine. When I did, I unintentionally jerked the steering wheel. I swerved head-on into oncoming traffic and smashed into a car coming the opposite way. The man in the other car was going about as fast as I was. The collision caused his car to jump into the air and land upside down on the street. Luckily, he was in an old Volvo that was built like a tank, so he came away from the accident relatively unscathed. I'll forever be grateful for that. I wasn't so fortunate. Since my seatbelt was off, my body lurched forward, and my head shattered the windshield, giving me a traumatic brain injury. This put a bit of a damper on my upcoming wedding, but I went ahead with it anyway. My head swelled up like a misshapen red basketball, which was bad enough, but then on top of that I suffered from all sorts of unpleasant symptoms. I got numbers mixed up. I started acting strangely. I put the iron in the refrigerator. I left the milk in the microwave. And then there was the time I left my car running all day in the parking garage at work with the keys locked inside. Needless to say, it was a disorienting, frightening, and embarrassing time. But here's the interesting part. I also began to experience moments of incredible bliss. Here and there, I had these fascinating states of expansion. I could see and feel things way beyond my regular everyday perception. And throughout it all, I felt quite tender and open-hearted. I saw the best in others as if it naturally emanated from their very core. These wonderful experiences lasted about 6 weeks or so, and during that time it seemed like I received a tremendous download of compassion and understanding. Unfortunately, that expansiveness also excavated some unexpected and difficult experiences. I took a turn in a negative direction, abruptly, as if falling down an elevator shaft directly into the dark night of the soul. In fact, I struggled quite a bit for the next 3 or 4 years. The crash had triggered memories of my childhood, a history of trauma that I had long been dissociated from. I floundered in my attempts to integrate all the disparate highs and lows I was experiencing. Apparently, all of this, particularly recalling traumatic memories, happens to a lot of people who survive high-impact accidents. I did everything I could think of to make sense of what was happening to me. I looked up various professionals in the Yellow Pages, for those of you who remember using the Yellow Pages, and interviewed them. I gave all sorts of therapies a try. I read everything I could find on trauma and recovery. I attended countless lectures and workshops. Basically, I went on a nationwide search to find anyone who could help me. But nothing worked very well. I found tidbits here and there and tried to stitch them together, but nothing brought me the understanding and relief I needed. Then I came across Peter Levine and attended one of his somatic experiencing, SE, workshops. At the time, I couldn't make much sense out of what Peter was doing, but I knew it had to do with returning the nervous system to regulation. More importantly, I knew right away that SE worked for me. With Peter's help, I slowly recovered and began to appreciate the relationship between physiology and trauma. I learned ways to effectively work with my nervous system and how to reduce the intensity of certain trauma symptoms, and I gained plenty of methods to unpack and integrate extreme experiences. Peter's SE work remains immensely informative and helpful to me. As I was healing, I decided to study under Peter, becoming one of the first somatic experiencing facilitators. I had the much-appreciated opportunity to teach SE worldwide for more than 25 years. I learned so much about working with autonomic nervous system regulation, how symptoms bind excess arousal from overwhelming life events, how to evoke and complete unfinished or inhibited self-protective responses, and so much more. I am forever grateful. Over time, I began to focus on how to reconnect in relationship in the face of the isolation and dissociation that can accompany traumatic experiences, and with Peter's help and the hard-won lessons of my own recovery, I've been able to meet and work with people in some incredibly dark places. I've helped them to diminish the intensity of their symptoms, enhance their resiliency, and often actually recover completely. It's a genuine privilege to travel on this journey with others and watch as they begin to enjoy their life again. This has become my life's work, and I plan to spend the rest of my life exploring the issues of trauma and resiliency and helping people recover their aliveness and well-being. Here are the major topics and questions I keep coming back to in my work. How do we heal broken connections to ourselves and others? And how can we come back to a sense of wholeness? How do we integrate our diverse experiences and all the parts of ourself that feel so broken and fragmented? How do we emerge from incredible loss, fear, and powerlessness to regain empowerment and resiliency? When trauma robs us of our physical self through dissociation or loss of boundaries, how do we become embodied and safely connected again? How do we reclaim our birthright to feel grounded and centered, to feel connection and compassion, to have access to all the facets of our humanness and our spiritual nature? I've learned that one key to answering these questions can be found by compassionately understanding our own and others' early relationship templates, then applying interventions and/or creating relevant corrective experiences related to putting attachment theory into action. Understanding the value of attachment theory in couples work, individual healing and therapy, and between willing partners or parents who are open to its wisdom is truly revolutionary and incredibly effective. This book is meant to help you answer some of these questions by uncovering your own early attachment history, understanding the various attachment styles, and focusing on practical approaches toward healing attachment wounds. It's a deep dive into our human capacity for true, enriching connection. Specifically, we will look at how attachment wounds affect our adult relationships and how we can increase our ability to enjoy secure attachment, no matter what type of childhood experiences we may have enjoyed or endured. Through this work, you'll learn what it takes to create deep and lasting, intimate relationships. Let's face it, life is sometimes quite hard. It doesn't matter who you are. All of us inevitably bump into challenges and hardships that are beyond our control. If you're on this planet long enough, you're going to be hit with some form of misattunement or loss, or abuse, or divorce, or disease, or a car accident, or an environmental disaster, or war, or who knows what. Sometimes these events are so overwhelming that we don't even have the capacity to react or respond to them. You can't stop these things from happening. They're just part of what it means to be human. And to make matters even trickier, epigenetic studies now suggest that, in a manner of speaking, we may inherit the struggles of our ancestors. In one way or another, we are affected by everything that our grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on went through and suffered from. But we're also the products of their resiliency. Throughout time and our evolution as a species, people have been experiencing hardships and doing their best to endure and survive them. So, life is hard, and it isn't your fault. That's just the way it is, which means that you can stop blaming yourself as if you alone are responsible. There are countless ways for any of us to end up experiencing trauma, and most of them have nothing to do with how we live our life or what kind of person we are. That's the bad news. But there's good news, too. We can do something about it. We're all born with an amazing capacity to survive, heal, and thrive, which is precisely the reason we've made it this far to begin with. It's what we're built for. Before we go on, I want to be clear about what I mean when I say the word trauma. Without getting too technical, trauma is what results from experiencing an event over which you have little control. Sometimes, as in the case with major accidents, you don't even have time to brace yourself for the impact. These events overwhelm your ability to function normally, and this can make you lose trust in your feelings, thoughts, and even your body. In this way, trauma is a form of tremendous fear, loss of control, and profound helplessness. I've also started thinking of trauma in terms of connection. The theme of broken connection has come up in my work repeatedly over the years. Broken connection to our body, broken connection to our sense of self, broken connection to others, especially those we love, broken connection to feeling centered or grounded on the planet, broken connection to God, source, life force, well-being, or however we might describe or relate to our inherent sense of spirituality, open-hearted awareness, and beingness. This theme has been so prominent in my work that broken connection and trauma have become almost synonymous to me. When trauma hits us, or we've experienced a lot of relational wounding, we can feel like we're utterly disconnected, like we're a tiny little me who's isolated and all alone, as if we're in our own little bubble floating around in a sea of distress, cut off from everyone and everything. I think it's our work to pop that imaginary bubble, or at least to build bridges that connect us to others we care about. Unresolved trauma, in my opinion, has led to a nationwide epidemic of loneliness and hurt. And it isn't just in our country. The evidence of this type of pain worldwide is readily available anytime you turn on the news. That's not the whole story, fortunately. We can heal and change. All of us are capable of healing and repairing these severed connections to ourself, other people, the planet, and whatever it is that holds it all together. But we can't do it alone. First of all, we're not capable of healing in isolation. We need other people. Stan Tatkin, clinical psychologist, author, speaker, and developer of a psychobiological approach to couple therapy, PACT, along with his wife, Tracy Boldman Tatkin, says that we are hurt in relationship and we heal in relationship. The presence of those close to us makes a difference even in the most dire circumstances. Just to mention one study among thousands, a hospital in Illinois recently demonstrated that coma patients recovered more quickly when they were able to hear the voices of their family members. Like it or not, we're all on this crazy and amazing human journey together. Our culture might encourage us to think of ourselves as do-it-yourself projects, but we get more positive results when we adopt a we-can-do-it-together approach. Doing so allows us to foster a healthy relational space with our friends, kids, partners, parents, siblings, and everyone else we contact, even strangers. Another study I find interesting measured physiological responses in people who were about to climb a steep incline. Their threat responses were highest when they were alone, much lower when accompanied by a stranger, and almost non-existent when they went with someone they felt connected to. And there are countless other studies to support the same conclusion. Our brain and nervous system are not isolated, but interconnected and social. At our core, we are social beings who regulate through connection with others. We engage in self-regulation too, of course, and learning how to take care of ourselves throughout our lifetime is incredibly important. But in this book, we're specifically concerned with how the nervous system initially develops. Ideally, kids grow up with caregivers who serve as master regulators of the household. The parents regulate themselves, and they regulate each other as a couple and as a parenting team. And better yet, the parents generate an environment of regulation in the home that benefits everyone involved, especially the children. The type of regulating environment we receive as young children influences how we see the world and interact with others for our entire life. For example, if we're held, nursed, and rocked in a positive way that makes our infant body more alive or relaxed or comfortable by someone who's regulated, attentive, and loving, those qualities and that regulatory impact get imprinted into our nervous system and body through implicit, non-conscious memory. Our nervous system learns to co-regulate in this manner by receiving information directly from caregivers, and that regulation becomes who we are on a neurological level. We need skin-to-skin contact, loving gazes and smiles, and heartbeat-to-heartbeat rhythmic communication. Unfortunately, we're also easily influenced at an early age by less than ideal circumstances. If you didn't grow up with the type of compassionate exchange I just described, your nervous system has a gap where that interactive regulation should be, making it more difficult as you age to trust others, ask others for help, or even think of asking for help when you need it. When attachment is disturbed, a child often won't have proximity-seeking behaviors they need to keep them safe. As it turns out, we can be a lot more autonomous when we rely on a support system. Doing so enables us to acquire the social and life skills we need, practice them, and eventually try them out in the world as we explore and manifest our gifts. Spending time alone is incredibly important for many of us, but too often we hold back with others and the world out of fear of criticism, rejection, shame, humiliation, or simply because we're afraid of making mistakes. I once heard a public speaker say, "I've learned so much from my mistakes. I think it's a great idea to go out into the world and make some more." Self-regulation and co-regulation are both needed and beneficial throughout our lifetime. Many of us have established techniques to regulate our own nervous system, yoga, breathing practices, physical exercise, and meditation, and I don't want to diminish the importance of how helpful those can be. Being comfortable in your own skin and having tools that help you relax is a really big deal, but learning how to feel safe with others is revolutionary. When your nervous system can co-regulate with other people and you feel safe and playful and relaxed, you can develop a stronger sense of secure attachment and enjoy its profound rewards, no matter what environment you grew up in. So I focus on being with others as a type of co-mindfulness. We include others in our meditation, our practice, and our overall path to healing, and at the same time, they include us in theirs. Results vary, of course, but the research indicates that we all do better when we're doing it together. In order to heal together, we need to feel safe, especially in intimate relationships. Experiencing a sense of threat is counterproductive to resolving issues, not to mention undesirable in other ways. When we feel threatened, it becomes increasingly difficult to access the parts of our brain that are oriented towards self-awareness and devoted to connecting to others. Keep all of this in mind as we move forward together. Seek to feel safe in your relationships and remember to help others feel the same. Be open to new ways to heal and regulate, both by yourself and with others, and it will foster greater connection and promote transformational intimacy. As you'll discover, this is a hands-on book. It's full of suggestions and exercises, so I want to offer this short visualization practice to get us started. Exercise. Who helps you feel safe and relaxed? Take a moment to think about anyone in your life with whom you feel safe and relaxed. Maybe it's your spouse, significant other, parent, grandparent, friend, child, therapist, or a stranger you met in a workshop. It could even be your favorite pet. Whoever it is, you can really find your feet with them and feel truly comfortable. You don't need to visualize everyone who comes to mind. Just choose one or two. And if no one seems to fit this description, that's okay too. I'll talk later about what to do if this is the case. But if someone does come to mind right now, picture them in as much detail as you can. Feel what it's like to be with them. What sensations come up for you? Where do you feel them in your body? Take a few minutes to try this exercise on and sink into whatever sense of presence and relaxation arises. Let's go back to the positive co-regulation situation I described, the one in which a baby is held in a beneficial, loving way. In this ideal scenario, which far too few of us experience, the child grows up in a pro-social family, one that values protection, presence, play, consistency, and responsiveness. Whenever the baby coos or reaches out or looks into their caregivers' faces, those faces look back at the child in a way that lets them know they're special. The love is palpable. The caregivers cuddle the child, play with those cute little fingers and toes, and touch them in a way that the child knows on a fundamental level that they are safe. And from a very young age, the child knows that they have some...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?